Damaged Defenders by Scherza. Chapter 7. Hulk, Jean, Wolverine, Loki, and Tony. Bruce took the last few minutes on the Quinjet to meditate, to gather certain images in a few simple words and hold them tight in his mind. As he'd discovered in Harlem, if he had time and was able to transform of his own free will, rather than unexpectedly, he was able to roughly direct the other guy. It wasn't a foolproof system, but it helped. Then they were on the ground, and Bruce let go. Hulk roar as puny Banner lets him out. Hulk look around. There is lots to see. Lots of punies. Even more flying shooties. Hulk no like flying shooties. Flying shooties make punies scream and run. Hulk make flying shooties go away. Hulk leap to smash. Flying shooties smash easy. Hulk roar and leap to smash more. So much to smash. Then Hulk see really big flying thing. Really big flying things stink like flying shooties. Hulk roar at big stinky flyer, then leaps on it. There are many stinky punies on big flyer. Stinky punies shoot at Hulk and hit Hulk. Hulk smash them against flying Stinky. Then Hulk punch flying Stinky. Hulk punch hard, but flying Stinky does not smash. Hulk growls and punches harder. Flying Stinky still does not smash. Hulk mad. Hulk punch harder, punch faster, hit same spot. Spot starts to smash and flying Stinky starts to not fly good. Then small puny jump on flying Stinky. Small puny ignore Hulk and start trying to smash. Small puny smash pretty good for small puny. Makes lot of stinky punies fall off flying Stinky. Then small Stinky start punching one spot like Hulk. Only small puny make hard stuff on flying Stinky's back go away, leaving soft spot. Hulk roar at small puny to make it go away, and then shoves torn off hard bit into soft spot. That makes flying Stinky stop flying. Flying Stinky crashed. Hulk leap away to find another big flying Stinky to smash. Jean knew her telekinesis and telepathy would be of minimal use in the fight. They all had comms they could use, so even if she was capable of relaying mental messages to multiple people, it was unnecessary, and she couldn't really do much with her telekinesis against the Flyers. No, she was of more use as crowd control and emergency medical assistance in this fight, with Scott to keep the Chitauri off her back and her own ability to defend herself against ground-bound opponents. She'd be fine and would hopefully manage to get people to safety. It wasn't like she lacked for people in trouble to help either. There were explosions going off everywhere. Debris of all sorts and sizes, from sand-sized bits of concrete to whole cars, were flying through the air. Everyone was panicking and running, not that she blamed them in the least. If there was ever a time to panic, a full-on alien invasion was it. Jean hustled down the street, checking cars to make sure they weren't occupied, and directing fleeing bystanders towards the buildings and subway tunnels and some measure of safety from the flying menaces. Twice in quick succession, she had to quickly fling some bits of debris airborne to serve as a shield because multiple flyers were targeting roughly the same area at the same time, and Scott and the other ground-side combatants couldn't take them all down fast enough to protect the knot of civilians the Flyers were aiming at. More than once, Jean found some traumatized people huddling beside or under a car or big chunk of debris, frozen in terror. Talking them into moving was invariably tricky, but necessary, as they were far too vulnerable out on the streets. They tended to listen faster when she got jumped by a Chitauri and had to beat it up before she could get them to safety. Realizing she could protect them until they got under cover was generally all it took to get them moving. Logan wasted no time in getting the hell out of the fucking jet. Any excuse to get out of the air was a good one as far as he was concerned. He hated flying. Of course, he had a slight problem in the fact that most of the enemy was airborne. Still, he could do a considerable amount of damage without riding around in a flying death trap. He relished the burn as his claws unsheathed and hit the ground running. He used his claws like climbing pigeons to allow him to scramble up the side of a nearby building so that he was closer to the Flyers. From there, it was a simple thing to leap, slash the connection between the two parts of the flyer into confetti, and then ride the back section with the shooters to the ground, jumping off at the last second and rolling clear. It didn't take long to get into a quick, efficient rhythm. He spotted the elf, who seemed to have much the same idea Logan had, except the elf was targeting eliminating the drivers. Same general result, but easier for the elf to manage than taking out the shooters. It wasn't like they lacked for targets. Then the first huge whale thing showed up, having managed to run the gauntlet of Storm and Thor's lightning, spitting more of the foot soldiers out of its sides as it went. Well, that gave Logan something to do while he was climbing up the jumping range anyway. About the time the whale came around for a second pass, Hulk spotted it and jumped on its back. Unfortunately, he couldn't seem to bring it down on his own. The armor looked to be denting, but not tearing up. Well, Logan could fix that, couldn't he? Logan climbed higher, then leapt onto the whale as it went past, slashing at some of the remaining foot soldiers swarming its back that had survived the initial assault on Hulk. Then he slashed at the armor on the thing's back until he opened a nice big section. Sure enough, Hulk was quick to spot the opening and drove one of the chunks Logan had cut out right into it. Right into the brain pan, because that's where Logan had cut the hole. And that did the trick, because the thing started losing altitude real fast. Logan leapt clear and landed on one of the small flyers. He stuck around long enough to tear it apart and kill the shooters before the back end crashed, then leapt clear. Loki had borrowed a ride from Thor, getting his brother to land him on the roof of Stark Tower. He'd had the thought that if Clint had been able to fight the Scepter's control enough to only shoot Fury in the chest rather than the head when ordered to kill him, and he himself had managed to connive on a couple matters, it was possible that Selvig had managed some sort of resistance as well. And if there was anyone who would know if there was a way to stop the Tesseract, it would be the man who had been forced to build the machine that the Tesseract was housed in to harness its power. It helped that Selvig would assume nothing had changed and that he was still to do as Loki wanted. He wouldn't think to be leery of Loki's approach like he would with any of the others. Thor even managed to get Loki up there when Selvig's attention was on the Tesseract machine, so Selvig didn't see Thor before Thor left. Loki didn't give Selvig time to realize anything was amiss, if he was capable of making such a realization in his current state. He just walked up behind Selvig and gave the man a carefully calibrated whack to the head. Selvig went down hard, but Loki was relieved to note not too hard. He was still breathing, and when Loki bent to make sure he hadn't accidentally broken the man's neck or some such, mortals were so fragile, Loki was pleased to note that he seemed to be merely unconscious. Well then, Selvig took a few minutes to rouse, but he was clear-eyed and understandably apprehensive about Loki's presence when he woke. Peace, Selvig. I mean you no harm. You are not the only one being controlled, Loki told him. I must needs speak with you about the machine you built to control the Tesseract's energy, he said, pointing to the machine currently protected by the shield around it. What about it? Selvig wanted to know, still eyeing him suspiciously. Is there any way to stop the portal? Loki asked. Selvig's eyebrows headed for his hairline. Evidently, that question was enough to establish that Loki had changed sides, as it were. Selvig rubbed at his head. I think so. I built a back door. That scepter of yours might be able to get through the shield and stop the Tesseract. Well, damn, that complicated things a bit. The scepter was back on the helicarrier. Loki grimaced, but relayed the information on the communications device he'd been given. Copy that, came Stark's distinctive mechanized voice. On my way. Since there was naught else Loki could do up here, he sought a way off the roof, and then made his way out onto the landing pad for Stark's armor. From there, he had an ideal vantage point to loose his magics from and a ready, constant stream of targets. It was child's play to project an illusion of apparently clear airspace in front of a craft that was otherwise on a collision course with another craft, building, or other obstruction. It mattered not that his illusions dispelled when touched. By then, the Chitauri pilot he was hoodwinking would be unable to correct its error and evade destruction. And if he took a perverse pleasure in destroying as many Chitauri flying craft as he could, no one was going to blame him. We need the scepter. It may be able to shut down the portal. Tony mentally rolled his eyes when Loki's voice came over the comm. Didn't it figure? The one thing they needed, they didn't have. He sighed. Copy that. On my way. He said it to the comm, then switched to Jarvis. You were the man, Jarvis. Pour on the juice. We gotta move. Right away, sir, Jarvis said. Tony twisted and flipped, turning himself around in the tightest possible curve before the repulsors kicked into high gear, and he took off over the city at Mach speeds. He was just grateful he'd been able to switch out suits at the start of the fight. He wasn't sure the Mark 6 would have held together much longer. "Open a line to Fury, Jarvis. It'll cut down on time if he's got it waiting for me." "Of course, sir," Jarvis said. "Stark, why the hell are you calling me? Aren't you a bit busy to chat?" Fury barked when he answered the call. "Nice to hear from you too, Eye Patch. Listen, break the scepter out of storage and get it out on the flight deck for me, would you? I'm on my way to pick it up. Loki says Selvig thinks it'll close the portal." "Loki says that Selvig thinks," Fury repeated. "That's a thin thread, Stark." "Better than nothing," Tony pointed out, mentally gritting his teeth. Fine. It'll be waiting for you," Fury groused. Fortunately, at Mach speeds, it only took Tony a couple of minutes to get to the helicarrier. True to his word, Fury was waiting on the deck with a long suitcase at his feet. Tony landed a few feet away. "No time to talk, Eye Patch. Gotta run," he said, closing the remaining distance to snatch the case. For a wonder, Fury didn't try to stop him or delay him, just stood there with his arms crossed over his chest, looking cranky. Tony blasted off the moment he had a good grip on the case and only just stopped himself from tilting enough to hit Fury with a backlash from his boot jets. "Loki, scepter incoming in 2 minutes," he called over the comm, then took off at top speed again. It was a brief and relatively uneventful flight back to the tower, though he had to shoot more than a few flyers to be able to land on the roof unmolested. He landed and handed the case to Loki, who wasted no time in literally ripping it open. He made it lengthen, then turned and stabbed at the shield viciously. Tony flinched a little when the shield flared, but nothing happened, so he relaxed. Moments later, the portal closed. Of course, that left them with the Chitauri who'd made it through, but their numbers were being rapidly decimated. Then, unexpectedly, about a minute after the portal closed, they all collapsed, the flyers crashing and exploding, and the sole remaining whale slamming down in the middle of the street. "What the heck?" Tony asked. "Why'd they all drop like that?" Loki frowned. "Thanos must have realized they would not prevail here, and ensured they could not reveal any information about his army and plans that they might have possessed." That made a sick sort of sense to Tony. "Unfortunately, this is only a temporary victory. Thanos will find a way to come here without the portal eventually," Loki said. "I was afraid you'd say that. At least we have time to plan now," Tony said with a sigh. "Indeed," Loki agreed.